Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
Neil, tell us who we got in the line.
We have Kaitlyn Greenidge. She is the author, and this is very interesting. We love you, Charlie Freeman. Kaitlyn, thanks for calling, and we want to jump right into who is Charlie Freeman because of our time, and I'm just going to go right to that because of looking at time. Yeah.
So the novel is about a black family from Boston that moves to a nearly all-white town in the Berkshires in the early 1990s. Charlie Freeman is a chimpanzee. They've been hired to teach him sign language as part of an experiment that's being run by like a private research firm. So the novel is about the family's experiences and reactions to Charlie Freeman.
Interesting. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. Yeah. So my first question, just because I know how complex the story could be, how did the book change as you wrote it, or did it change while you were writing it?
Mostly what changed is that I changed the point of view of the characters. So the book is told through the oldest daughter's point of view, and then also through her parents and her younger sister, and then of the woman who runs this research institute that's running this very strange experiment. So it was shuffling each character's point of view and having each character speak and talk.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Kaitlyn, how did you come up with the idea? I mean, this is such an interesting idea for the actual story. I mean, is there something that was attached to your personal life? Was it something you just, had, in your mind you were working on for a while, or what?
Sure. I was at a lecture, and it was the overall kind of theme of the lecture was animals and deviance, and someone was talking about a couple in the 1920s who raised their son with a chimpanzee. They were anthropologists, and they wrote a book about it called The Ape and the Child. And when the book came out, they were kind of really criticized by most other anthropologists that this was a terrible idea to do. And so they kind of disowned the whole experiment, and their son actually had a really kind of sad life after that. So I got pretty interested in that and thought that was a pretty dramatic story, and I read more about it. And there's actually a large number of memoirs of people who have tried to do this for either scientific or just, their own interest reasons of trying to raise a chimpanzee in their family. And it almost always ends badly because we really should not be kind of living close by them. So I thought, that's a really great, dramatic thing for a novel, and or at least like a piece of fiction. And then I also was really interested in talking about language, and so it seemed like an interesting way to talk about language.
Now, chimpanzees, I wish I could come up with some of the movies that we've seen chimpanzees in certain ways portrayed. And the one with Matthew Broderick where he's tried to save them all with science experiment. Mm-hmm. I forget the name of that. And I guess different ones. What was your thought process in understanding chimpanzees? Is this something, Kaitlyn, that's close to your heart?
No, not at all. I was more interested in thinking about this family dynamic and kind of this chimpanzee is disrupting a family dynamic, and what does that look like, and how does a family respond to that? I'm not a huge fan of animals, and I think that is. I respect them and think they're great, but that wasn't really the driving force of wanting to write about it, and it was more kind of thinking about how do you create this family dynamic and talk about how a family reacts to change.
Alrighty. So while you were researching and writing the book, what is one thing from your research or from what you wrote in the book that you want to highlight that is something that you found very very memorable or touched your mind, or with the quotes or something like that?
There's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, what was probably most interesting was the language part of it. So my mom knows sign language and used it with us when we were kids, and she's not deaf herself, but she's hearing, and she's taught in deaf schools, and we grew up around a whole bunch of deaf culture. But when I was researching, I found out about dialects within deaf culture. So American Sign Language has a dialect of African American Sign Language that grew up in segregated deaf schools in the early part of the 20th century. That some people still use. And so that's really interesting and really cool. And there's even other dialects that other groups use. Like there's a dialect that has grown up around groups of gay men. There's dialects that grow up in different regions. So I think it's really fascinating how human beings kind of continually try to make language for themselves and for their friends and for the people they interact with.
Yeah, most definitely. And the fun thing for you, if you didn't find this out, is that also there's different versions of sign language depending on the language you're doing.
Right,
so like
for sure.
English, Spanish.
Yep.
And that's the interesting thing too. So fun, awesome, thank you.
It's such an interesting topic to hear about this, and what's been the feedback? Have you had a lot of folks read it and give you like positive, negative, or creative ideas about it?
It's had a lot of great reviews and great discussion and great conversation, so it's been good so far.
All right, so I think that the fascination of bringing in sign language versus not using sign language. I'm going to go into the education piece before we're running out of time.
Yeah.
As an educational advocate, I'm an educational advocate. I have dealt with one family that wanted to use both, yet there are school proponents out there that don't want to use American Sign Language at all, and especially in school districts. Mm-hmm. What is your thought in that whole feedback of and how kids could be really, really intelligent, yet they want to stay with their population, and school districts are fighting them into the school system?
I think that's a really complicated subject, and I think that in that instance, I would listen to members of the deaf community, and I think people have like a wide range of response to it. But as a hearing person, I feel kind of weird making a comment on it. But I will say, I think there's great strength to be found in these communities and things that we don't even know as hearing people that can come from the community and culture that deaf people are able to make. So I think I think mainstreaming people is something to see, and I think our schools actually become stronger once you get as many kind of different learners in there, and if the school is able to respond to how people learn. But I think I think it's a complicated issue, and I would defer to people who are actually deaf. Part of the issue, is that oftentimes people speak for other people when,
yes.
The people who actually know what's going on can
they
know exactly what's happening. It's not about reputation at all.
No, I was kidding you. It was a joke. Our first guest was all about reputation, Kaitlyn.
Oh, really?
I'm joking.
Okay.
No, it's a joke. It's a joke. Don't worry. No,
yeah.
Eric gets the joke and Peter gets the joke, right?
Yeah.
You guys get the... Okay. Well, she doesn't go. So our first guest was all about reputation online.
Oh, okay.
No. I think that it's interesting you talk about those things because, again, it's something, Kaitlyn, that we have to look at with language and all these things to go with the community that knows it the best. And that's what I was trying to state. And school districts to jump in front of this or anyone or even having an opinion that you shouldn't have a chimpanzee in your house. That's none of your business. let us go from there. That's the way
I mean, it's people don't like to do that because it gets messy, but I don't think we can go any other way without talking to people, where they're at and trying to figure out the best solution for a particular community,
All right. Well, Kaitlyn, best place we can purchase your book and learn more about you. Where can we go?
You can purchase it probably at your independent bookstore, Powell's, Amazon. All those places have it.
All right, Kaitlyn, best of luck and enjoy the rest of the book fair. And you're lucky you're in Miami. It's snowing in Pittsburgh right now. If you
I saw the snow this morning, and I miss it.
No, I mean, that's just really shocking to see white stuff on the ground as I look out the window when it was 70 degrees on Friday. So that's winter's coming. Well, Kaitlyn, thanks for calling and best of luck.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. You're listening to Author's Corner, powered by Life Improvement Radio, live from the Miami Book Fair, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.